Welcome. We're here to do the fourth in our blind tasting series. And this evening we're looking at American whiskey, predominantly bourbon. And I have to say, for myself and James, it has been the most challenging of the four thus far, in that we've probably never spent as much time on the phone with Mr. Tony Ryan here, sorting out the bottles, because in fairness to Tony and High Spirits, they have brought to the table today some very exclusive and very high-end whiskey, and we're very, very grateful for them for helping us out with that, and obviously sharing with yourselves. We have some guests, as we normally would, and we're gonna kind of introduce them as we move along. Look at that, very fancy. We're going to introduce them as we go along, and I suppose as we see it on our screen, on the top right, we have Tony Ryan. Tony, do you want to say hello?
Good evening, everybody. Thanks to Mike and James for inviting me along. I work as an ambassador for Sazerac Ireland, which trades as High Spirits, and it's an independently owned drinks company, largest spirits producers in the United States, fourth largest in the world. And I don't want to say too much about our products because I don't want to give it away. It's a blind tasting. So basically, Sazerac is an independent, privately owned drinks company. So they don't have to answer to shareholders, and can flake away and produce spirit at will. And we're going to get to taste six exceptional bourbons tonight, and hope everyone has a good evening.
Thanks, Tony. So hello, Tony, and he's spouting a background that isn't from here.
It isn't Mother Max. I'm trying to look see what bar it is, Tom.
I'm thinking, Tom, you're going to get barred, Tom, without even having come in during COVID. But do you want to unmute yourself, Tom, and introduce? So we've a good friend to Mother Max, who we've become very close to Tom on social media very recently, and he has visited the bar a few times, and we actually haven't met him face to face. But I know the last time he was in, Vinnie Galuli entertained him and sat in his lap and did a few other bits and pieces. Whatever they did, right? So, do you want to introduce yourself, Tom?
Yeah, I suppose Limerick native anyway, so officially a blow-in down in Killarney. It's been 18 months since my last drink in Mother Max. Like a few others, I'm sure, in the room tonight. So yeah, we do, for our sins, we do golf and sightseeing tours into Ireland, which has been a fucking disaster over the last 2 years because there's been no one allowed into the country. And I suppose when I'm not drinking Harris Pale Ale, I'll have a Redbreast 12-year-old. So looking forward to the bourbon though tonight, because I like a bit of bourbon myself as well.
Man, Tom, excellent. Yeah, we're going to have a bit of fun with Tom now tonight, because Tom is very active on social media, and he's good crack. He's good crack. So on the bottom left of our screen, and obviously we just did this in no particular order whatsoever, we have Amber and Eric. Now, as I said, they are the alpha and the omega. They're our closest friends that we have for the bar here. What else could we say? What else can we say about them? They're good looking. Did I forget anything? What else did you tell me I had to say?
We are the resident Americans on the call.
We can only find 2 Americans in Limerick. Come on.
Yeah. So Amber and Eric, or Eric and Amber, and I'm going to interchange who's first, because it's sometimes we've a habit of just saying one over the other. Our good friends of ours here, they are, I don't want to say food bloggers, but you're drinks bloggers, food bloggers, you are wine experts, you are tourism people, you've lived in Spain, you've lived in all parts of the world. So maybe, I suppose, you've very uniquely here tonight, because you've had lots and lots of different experiences. But hey, maybe you might just introduce yourselves.
Yeah, so I speak first. It's alphabetical. Yeah, we are the resident Americans here. Our main blog is Food and Drink Destinations. Just yesterday, we published our Irish whiskey guide. If anyone would like to take a look at that, where to drink whiskey in Ireland.
Co-authored by Mike.
Co-authored by Mike. We went out for some expert opinion on that. And as much as we write about drinks from around the world and wine, we don't know a lot about American whiskey. So I don't know exactly why we're here other than to be the token American.
Well, and also if being a publican has been hard for the last 2 years, if doing golf tourism has been hard for the last year, if you write about food travel, yeah, it also sucks.
Yeah, look, why you're here is because we enjoy your company.
Ah, yeah.
There you go, right? Okay. So again, we have some wonderful guests here tonight, right? The guys are all good crack. We're going to have a bit of fun. This is intended to be educational as well as a little bit of fun. As we said, everyone has a kit in front of them. There's 50 mils of whiskey in that kit. You do not need to drink all 50 mils, right? We are totally and utterly all about responsible consumption of alcohol and responsible serving of alcohol. So, I mean, 15 mils, and Elaine Vaughan, I see you laughing, 15 mils is enough in the glass, you know, and you can keep the rest for later. But hey, look, everyone on this call is already an adult, so whatever you do yourself is totally up to yourself. But we are recommending 15 mils for the purposes of tasting. But if you want to drink it all, and do as I said, or as been said in social media this week, pull a Dan Mooney and just drink it all, then you can do that, right? Yeah. Okay, so we're going to rock on. Okay, we recommend having a little bit of water present as well. We probably won't be adding it to the water or to the whiskey tonight, but have it there just to keep yourself hydrated. And pour out number one, and let's get going. So we'll give you a moment. Okay, so we're gonna nose the whiskey to begin with, and for those that have already been on some of these with us before, and maybe for those who are new, you know, we have a tendency not to look at the color of whiskey, because there is I suppose a slight tendency in the industry right now to add a lovely caramel color that's called E150A, I think it's called, or it's E150B, I can't remember off the top of my head. And the color is sometimes not as much of an indicator as it used to be. So we don't eyeball it as much as we do, but we do nose it, right? And to nose, we like to bring the glass, and I'm not going to say it's not wine, right? So we don't stick our nose right into it because the whiskey can be a little bit overpowering. So we like to bring the glass slowly to our nose, you know, and we, as a general rule, kind of will almost put the rim of the glass to the top of our lip, and start from there and progress the nose down further as we need to get a better aroma. Okay, so we're going to nose the whiskey. Right, I'm gonna Amber and Eric, we're going to start with you. I'm going to put you on the spot. What are we getting? Do you want to kick it off?
Tastes like freedom.
Yeah.
We haven't tasted yet. You're nosing.
I feel like cheating already and saying caramel.
I was going to say the same thing, but that's sort of the default.
I think.
No, I think caramel. I think is a great call, right? Caramel. We can definitely get it, chat.
I almost think maybe a little green apple.
Okay. So I'm going to say I should have said there are no right or wrong answers here, right? So whatever aroma you smell, right? Because
I appreciate you saying that about not shoving the nose in, because I think with wine we're so used to fully putting the nose in the glass. So
I mean, it doesn't smell like a strong alcohol smell, and I know that when we did the rum tasting, there were a couple that the caramel butterscotch just like smacked you in the face. This is a lot more subtle than some of those.
It is. John Doyle is saying you can get a little bit of ginger off it. I can get that. I can get the. It was interesting you mentioned. It's interesting you mentioned rum, because I get almost like a kind of a rum spice off this.
Yeah.
Tom, what are you thinking, Tom?
I'd be nearly I probably am wrong, but I'm going to go anyway. Like a rum or sorry, a sherry or like a Madeira kind of cask off it. Even when I was pouring it, I could kind of get that kind of nose off it just in the glass without sticking the Shrone in at all, you know. I did have a sneaky taste just before the call. It was really smooth, really nice. But yeah, that for me anyway, that's what I got off it.
Yeah, look, and that's good. We're going to go up. We're going to go up to the experts. Tony, what do you think? What are you getting from us?
I still apple, like red apples, as Rory mentions there, and lots of those nice butterscotchy flavors, chocolate, vanilla. I was in the process of writing out the strict laws that describe bourbon to put in the chat. Will I just put them out to the group?
If you want, right, but we find that rules and laws are meant to be broken on this call, so
it's just because as a spirit, it's very the laws that cover its manufacture are very strict.
Okay,
so
let's cover them really quickly, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
in terms of
there's a whole load of background, which is normally that I'm spouting out to keep people entertained in a room, but don't think that's necessary right now. But it must be made from 51% of what Americans call corn, but what we know as maize. It must be distilled in the US or the territories, so it can be Puerto Rico, Guam, can make bourbon in those. It must be aged in a new oak barrel. It cannot be distilled beyond 80% to make sure it's not distilled to hell and back, and it still has some texture. It can't be put in a barrel at over 62.5%. It must be aged for at least 2 years. No, it must be aged for, if it's aged for 2 years, it must have an age statement. If it's aged for 4 years or more, it doesn't have to have an age statement. So you can take for granted, as these don't have an age statement, they're at least 4 years old.
So
And it must be bottled at least 80 proof.
I think if it's aged for 4 years or more, it'll have straight bourbon on the bottle, won't it?
No, that the straight is generally the same as that we would say single, so it's a product of one distillery.
Okay.
Tony, does it have to be American oak?
No, it says new oak barrel. It's kind of inferred that it must be American oak.
Yeah.
It's generally all comes from the Ozarks,
Okay.
and around that region, just for quality. And a lot of these places are in, like a lot of distilleries in around Kentucky,
Yeah.
will come from this. Will get their will get their barrels made in similar places, so they can control quality, because
Okay.
the barrel is such an influence. It cannot be artificially colored, actually, which is one thing. The bourbon cannot be artificially colored.
So there'll be no particular taste off the barrel. So if they're completely new, presumably, is that right?
Well, they will have telltale flavors. So if ever you're training bartenders, you always tell them this is bourbon. It's aged in a new barrel. It will do X, Y, and Z. And if you're saying this is Irish whiskey, it's probably aged in X bourbon, then that has given it X, Y, and Z. I don't want to say what X, Y, and Z are, because I don't want to prejudice people's flavors.
Yeah.
So on that note, let's move to tasting, right? Let's move to tasting, because that'll make it all.
It's the fun part, tasting it.
So Tom, I'm going to go to you first. What do you think?
Really nice, really smooth, kind of Jameson kind of smooth. For me, there's a little bit of a burn on in the throat, all right, at the end, but no, really like it. It's I could drink a bit of that, all right, with Vinny at the other side of the bar.
Tom, you're going to say that about everyone.
Look, I might, but you know, it's like when Homer was a food critic, everything was great, you know. So,
Eric and Amber, go on, like delve into it. What do you think?
I think John Doyle had mentioned about ginger. I think there's a nice combination of spices in there. I'm getting a little bit of ginger. I almost want to say cinnamon, but not so much. It's baking spices, kind of.
Doesn't taste as sweet as I felt like it smelled. I felt before the caramel smell, or as Tony mentioned, the butterscotch. Like I'm not tasting that, and it doesn't taste as sweet as what I would associate with like a typical bourbon.
The smell is sweet, the taste is spice.
So I'm going to say, as you picked up on something there, Amber, because the aroma and the nose of this was very kind of Swedish in terms of the caramel, the toffee. For me, right, the taste of this is more kind of like a toffee apple, or of a kind of a raisins. There's like a little bit of a dark chocolate going on in there. I'm actually getting a little bit of the tartness of a kind of a coffee bean. That touch of kind of toasted wood and almost like oak is coming through. And that's a spiciness that's there in it. And then it kind of has a little bit of sweetness to it.
Like a kind of a brown sugar kind of sweetness.
Yeah, like a brown. And definitely, right, I can definitely get a cinnamony spice coming through it. Definitely. You know.
Like for me, then you're getting the apple, but actually it's following through on the nose. We were getting kind of a toffee on the nose. It's actually nearly a toffee apple on the tongue, on the palate. There's a bit of chocolate I'm getting actually.
Yeah. You know, I mean, like in terms of the finish is I would consider it relatively short, right? I wouldn't see it being long, but there is that spice, in that warm tongue that you mentioned. Tony, do you want to add anything to that, or are we talking madness?
No, I think you're 100% accurate. I like I think it's got an exceptional body, and there's a bit of a creaminess, bit of a butteriness. It would have like an oily texture akin to an Irish pot still. I get the kind of paprika tartness, which would come from aging in a new barrel. So the barrel will have the climate in Kentucky. In a new barrel, the barrel has great impact very quickly. So we're not going to mention age statements, but they would age a lot quicker than in Ireland. So it's got tartness. The finish, I think, dies off a bit. So an extra few years, be interesting what could happen. But it's really, really pleasant. Like I love reading the notes. Yeah, I get the kind of hint of candy floss.
Yeah.
I feel like it's still sticking around. I can still feel at least the heat from it.
There's definitely a spice on the back of the throat, and it's lingering a small bit, kind of cinnamon actually, cinnamon and spice. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I've been chewing Big Red, the cinnamon gum from America.
I just want to pick up on something that Tony said, right? Because Tony said similar to a pot still, right? And I suppose Tony had mentioned the rules by which bourbon is manufactured, and one of the rules was that it's not distilled beyond 160 proof or 80% ABV, right? And probably one of the reasons for that is to try and maintain that little bit of the oily character, the little bit of congeners, that little bit of flavor, because the more pure you make it, i.e. the higher the proof, the higher the percentage, you know, the less flavor that's there. It becomes more likened to vodka, you know, because vodka is as a neutral spirit in the States, I think is 95%. Over this side of the world is 96%.
And to double down on that, when you mention it's 51% maize, that's the minimum, but it does mean that it's going to have a mixed mash bill, similar to pot still, which can be, you know, 95% barley of some sort, but it generally is 40-60. And these particular distilleries won't disclose their mash bill, so big mystery. And bourbon geeks are often try and guess what's what. But I think that adds to the body also.
Okay, so we're going to take a little bit of water, and then we're going to move on to sample number 2. So again, we're going to pour out 15 mils of us. But please do take in a little bit of water. I don't want anyone getting dehydrated, especially if we're out in the sun today. You know, it's not good. Okay, into number 2, we're going to nose it. And I mean, let's see how we get on. Oh, Knox is asking what sun? Looking out through the growler hatch, I could see sun all day. Okay. Will we kick off with Eric and Amber this time, or Amber and Eric, whichever way they want to do it?
This to me screams bourbon. There's just a lot of sweet coming off here. I'm thinking honey and maybe some dark chocolate. But to me, this is thinking, like, if you were to just put this in front of me and have me smell it, this is bourbon.
Just on the nose, so it's a lot more sweeter, isn't it, than the first one?
Yeah.
And a different kind of sweet. It doesn't remind me of that caramel toffee butterscotch sweet.
I don't know, how popular is canned corn in Ireland?
Not.
Okay, for those of you who are not American, it smells like canned corn,
Just sweet.
which is sweet. Yeah, it's very sweet. You hated it as a kid.
And as a very interesting link to that, sure, that's probably one of the raw materials that go into
Yeah.
actual of the bourbon. Yeah, look, so I mean, for me, look, there's definitely a kick of vanilla in it. You know, I think that David,
As Eric said, there is definitely, you're getting the honey there. You're definitely getting the honey.
nice honey in there, caramel, and there's like a little floral note to it. I don't know, it's kind of I can't put my finger on it. Yeah, it's kind of like, if you were to use a word, it reminds me of summer, if that makes sense.
It's spring. It reminded me of spring when you said floral.
Yeah.
Mike, would you call that floral note maybe a bit spirity?
If I was to go into this, right, and I'm going to say something, Tony. I think when we're finished tasting, I'm going to go back and nose this glass when it's empty, right? And I have a funny feeling. Well, sorry, I already know, because I did a tasting with this during the week, right? So I have a funny feeling as we go back into it, we get a slightly different aroma, right? Is it a little spirity? It is a touch. I get that, but I think there is another floral note there, and I just couldn't even when I did my tasting notes during the week, and I just couldn't pinpoint what it was. Tom, what do you think of this one? Nose wise, not tasting it.
Yeah, I haven't tasted this one yet. I'm not that sneaky. But maybe more like possibly vanilla, or even those of us were old enough to remember that awful cream soda drink that would the strange kind of smell. For me anyway.
That's actually a great call. That cream soda is
soda, and you're definitely getting the vanilla there.
yeah.
I just said, Dave actually had a good comment there. Honeysuckle.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely honey in there anyway. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, let's go on. Let's proceed on to tasting. So let's see, because this
Well,
is
Mike, real quick, I also think this one's 5 degrees higher, but the alcohol is a lot less off the nose. I think the first one you were getting alcohol. This one, despite being stronger, I'm not getting.
No, I'm gonna say something to that, Eric. Right? And we, as we proceed, we'll see how we get on. Right, with the first one, sometimes you're getting your palate and your nose acquainted to the alcohol. So I mean, as we go along, if that still holds true, then you've been pre-rehearsing and you're fine. But if this was your first one, then maybe you're not pre-rehearsed, and it will die down a little bit, if that makes sense.
I've never prepared for anything in my life.
Okay, let's go and let's taste this. That's Jacobsen butterscotch. Yeah, you're a good call, Jacob, as well.
For me, this one kind of follows through what you're getting on the nose. I think you're getting the vanilla, you're getting a bit of caramel. I think the honey's coming through more. And
I'm going to say there's definitely, right, 100% oak. You can get the oak from this, right?
Yeah.
It's definitely there, right? You can get that flavor from it. And it's sweet in terms of like the caramel, the honey. I mean, even the vanilla. It's quite it's quite delicious. Tom, what do you think of the taste wise?
I'd probably prefer the first one. It's a bit more like a West of Ireland kind of peaty, oaky kind of a taste for me anyway. But it is nice, but not quite as nice as number one. But yeah, I get that kind of peaty kind of vibe off it, you know.
So John,
I see one of the comments there that it's drier on the palate. I think that's the extra 5%. I think that tartness is the extra 5%.
Yeah.
And I agree with the no burn on the throat. I'm not feeling the spiciness of the first one or the cinnamon of the first one. I'm not feeling it back here. It's kind of more on the front of my lips. I'm feeling a little tingle there rather than in the back of the throat.
Yeah. That's a
And
fun
that, I'm going to say for me, right, that when I'm tasting that signifies oak for me. That signifies the wood. When I get that kind of to the front of my tongue, kind of on the lips, that kind of that, and someone said dryness, it's there as well, right? But you get for want of a better word, right? Spikiness, a little tingly, a little dry on the tongue. I find that I get that personally from oak.
Yeah.
It's one of the signs I have from it. And then even the dryness on the back of my palate, to the back of your tongue is there as well, right? And I want to say it's definitely drier in the mouth. Alan was saying pine needles in terms of the spice. John Nolan said it's rye whiskey. John, I think you could be fantastically right on this one. So yeah, the rye is there is a bit of rye there, John. Yeah, 100%. Tony, do you want to add anything to this one? No, Tony's okay. Tony's fine.
No, nothing. I don't have anything productive to say for right now.
Any unproductive?
That's okay. That's all right. Would you like to sing a song? I think it doesn't get back of the throat as more than the first one. It's a lot shorter. As I said, there isn't the spice, isn't there? It's more kind of honey, caramel, kind of oaky.
Something that really came across to me, I thought, was like burnt pineapple. If you've had it on a dessert where they grill a pineapple, that real caramelized sugar note was there on the tongue, which wasn't there as much in the first sample.
I'm going to say
the reason I said no was because of, I know what it is. I don't want to give it away.
Tony learns the tasting notes.
Well, Tony, it's funny you say that, because I was thinking citrus, but not citrus in the fresh sense, but almost in the
Baked citrus
or citrus that is slowly starting to go off. And I think when you say like a burnt pineapple, that to me is citrus kind of going off a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. That's dead right. The bit of fermentation coming through in it, like
yeah.
Take a bite out of an apple, go do something, come back and take a bite out of it. Very different.
Yeah.
I'm just having a thought, Tony. Actually, we changed the order without telling you. Did I not say that, So I'm going to leave it there, right? I'm going to, for anyone with an empty glass, right, go back to the glass and have a little nose with it. Right? And for those that have joined us previously, you know that I quite like doing that, right? I quite like going back to the empty glass, because at that stage, the most volatile is kind of gone. The liquid is gone. And what you're left with is often the more subtle kind of notes that are there. And it comes from kind of the oilier congeners that are present, right? And as I said in the beginning with this one, there's definitely kind of a floral note that's in there, right? And as I go back into the glass, it's kind of a freshness. I was finding it difficult to put words into this one, right? Because it's not fresh grass. It's not. I can't really explain what it is, but it's definitely a very fresh floral kind of note to it for me. And it's more present when the glass is empty and a little bit warm. That makes sense. No, I'm just going to say, for anyone who was looking, Eric did an absolutely fantastic thing, and we should have mentioned it as well. Sometimes as we're tasting and as we're nosing, we go a little bit nose blind, and to reset our nose, we should actually sniff on bare skin.
Okay, everyone.
Yeah.
Not here.
I'm going to put caveats on this. It should be clean. And the second thing is, you're supposed to sniff it's like a rabbit, right? Short, sharp sniffs, and it resets your nose, right? So that's just for anyone who has been on before to know we talk about this. Anyone who hasn't, that's just how we tend to reset our noses. Okay, let's get a bit of water in, and we're going to move into number 3. Okay. So John Nolan said that the floral note has disappeared from him. He's left with a little bit of wet wood, a bit of hay barn. So I'm actually, I don't disagree with any of those.
Was that kind of the grassy note?
There is a bit, yeah, that grassy note would say that to me, yeah. But there's for me, there's something else there. But I mean, again, we're all different. So let's take a little bit of water when we want to number 3.
Mike, I don't know if you've said this on previous tastings, but again, Amber and I are more familiar with wine tastings, and obviously older wines, you want to let them kind of sit out and kind of come to life. If you were to take one of these and come back in an hour, is the smell going to be different?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it will. And I suppose that the caveat that you have to ask yourself is, where have you left it?
Fair. Yeah.
In front of Vinny, it's not going to be there anymore.
Yes.
Yeah. So what
Is it in a warm room? Is it warmed up more?
Yeah.
You know, is it,
So sometimes what you'll actually see is when you go to tastings, it'll be set up, it'll be presented, but there'll be clock glasses or watch glasses placed on top. And what that does is it just stops the headspace vapors coming out. But it allows the liquid to come to room temperature. And I suppose the best way to taste it, like red wine, right? Like any wine, really, you should be tasting it kind of at roomish temperature, or 13 degrees upwards. The same with beer. The colder it gets, the less you can taste it. But obviously whiskey, that's why we don't put ice into our whiskey for tastings, for that reason. But okay, let's.
If we were doing a tasting with more foolproof bourbons, or what we'd call cask strength whiskey in Ireland, we'd normally open the bottle and pour it as soon as we get, as early as we can. Because the real strong spirity vapors will they'll have lifted off. So when the customer goes to nose the whiskey, they're not going to get a head full of spirit down their nose, and it's not going to burn their sinus straight away. When you're having the ones kind of over 55, 56, 57% and up, so we're not going that high today, so should be okay. But if you wanted, it would be an idea maybe to open the rest of the bottles. But it should be fine.
Okay.
I have a tendency not to do it, and it's just a personal preference in the bar here, because oxidation kind of bothers me, But look, we'll move on to number 3, right? Number 3, 15 mils. Let's nose it. Let's see. Lee O'Brien is asking, is Vinny on the call? No, for everyone that's present. Vinny's mother is 60 this weekend, and he has returned to Castlereagh to celebrate her 60th by footing turf in the bog. I don't know, is that a Roscommon thing or what that is, but that's how she's celebrating her 60th birthday. And for those that think I'm joking, I'm not.
we will put a picture up later on. Watch this space.
Yeah.
Okay, let's delve into this. Let's nose this one. And immediately, right, I'm going to say this one is different to the previous 2. Immediately, it's a completely different nose to it. I'm going to go to you, Eric, right, because you made a comment with number 1, right, that you had said that it reminded you of what a bourbon was, an American bourbon is. Yeah. So what do you think of this one?
This one really makes me think of bourbon.
And the next one,
And then
even more.
No, and in fact, it's somebody put candied apple. It actually makes me again, not sure if they were here in Ireland, but the little candy corns, kind of about yay big with 3 different colors on them. It's a Halloween thing back in the States, probably the worst candy you could give out to kids, but very sweet, but almost charred a little bit. Yeah, that's what this reminds me of. But yeah, again, put this underneath me with a blindfold, and I'd be like, oh, that's a bourbon.
Yeah, this one, right, for me is in terms of sweetness of the aroma, I'm getting the honey. I'm getting almost like, and I'm going to say maple syrup, right, because I made pancakes the other day, right? It's kind of it reminds me of maple syrup, and then there's a touch, maybe of orange peel, maybe kind of orange rind going through it as well for me. It's really nice.
It's very fruity, like I said, the candied apple, there's a orange peel there in it.
There's a little bit, Jonathan, there's a little bit of hazelnut going through it. Yeah, 100%. There's a touch of that kind of woody, nutty kind of aroma to it. Tom, what are you thinking, Tom?
Definitely corny.
You're
I think you're on mute, Tom.
muted or you're quiet, one or the other.
Hang on. I'm back.
Usually for you to be quiet, but yes, I must be muted.
Yeah, kind of even a bit of like Terry's chocolate orange or something kind of thing. Kind of a bit of that going on for me anyway. Not to be naming products like I did the cream soda, but
I definitely get orange.
a bit of that.
Yeah, and Tony, do you want to add to it?
The first note I got, and I can't remember writing it down for bourbon before, was marshmallows on the nose, toasted marshmallows. And I think it's.
I'm only laughing here because Elaine up in the corner there has just kind of went, yes.
Good. So, yeah, it's nice when you get that bit of reaffirmation.
She loves toasted marshmallows. She loves whiskey that smell and taste like marshmallows and clouds.
I like. I think it lingers a bit longer. I think it's got a bit more presence on the palate.
I'm not into that yet, Tony. We're only sipping it yet. We're only on the nose.
Sorry,
So
I couldn't hold back.
Someone said there's a little bit of an acetone aroma to it. I'm going to say I don't want to comment on that because previously I said no, there's definitely no acetone, and when we went back to smell it, went back to nose it afterwards, we could get that from it. I think maybe it's the alcohol in there is very subtle, and it's probably that it's the previous two that the alcohol aroma was stronger. And it's a little bit more subtle, and yeah, it could be mistaken for acetone, or it could be understood as acetone, but it's more of a subtle alcoholic aroma to it. I think.
Like I'm definitely getting kind of toffee. I'm actually getting a kind of a herby on the nose.
Yeah, let's go to taste one because this one is interesting.
So John, another question for you. You're the resident expert. So the rules say 51% maize or corn. Again, this is really coming off as super more sweet, more sugary kind of aroma. What would you were saying that a lot of people would try to dissect what the distillers are using. What would they do with that other 49% to maybe up the sweetness?
Yeah, that's a great question. So they will always have to use malted barley for the fermentable enzymes, normally 5 to 7%. They want a good base of sweet corn, of maize, because again, it's a high sugar content, and depending on the maize they use, whether like they use a Indian red maize is popular. North Dakota 4-row maize is very popular because they're the highest sugar contents. And then you normally wouldn't really go beyond, say, 70-75% of maize, and then the rest is normally rye, which would be your flavoring grain. So you have a low rye would normally be, say, 4 to 5%. So overall it might be, say, 85% maize.
Yeah.
Or a high rye would be 15 to 25% rye, and in some instances they use wheat and rye, and in very rare instances they don't use any rye, but they use wheat instead.
Is the maize ever cooked? Is it always just raw?
So it would be cooked in part of the fermenting process when they're making the beer. So we would put it into a mash tun in Ireland to make what we would call the wort. And in America, they put it into a cooker. It's a mash tun, but they call it a cooker. And to make what they call the beer or the pot ale, which we would call the wort or pot ale.
Okay, interesting. Thanks.
But yeah, it would normally be, say, 60 to 75% maize, 5 to 15% flavoring grains, and 5-ish% malted barley.
Very good.
So I'm going to say on the palate for this one, right? I'm definitely getting a kick of oak from it. It's definitely there. It is. This one is really dry as well, and mouthfeel wise, it's somewhat buttery. It's actually quite nice. It's quite delicious, And then there's a little bit of a nutty kind of a kick to it, almost like.
I was going to say, nutty
almonds, good call, yeah, and maybe a little bit of walnut, and then there's a kind of like a sweet fruit kind of to it as well. I'm not sure how to kind of describe that, maybe like a honey fruit or something like that. But and there's a little vanilla then. Well, even there's a lot of vanilla going through it.
First thing for me was heat. It's heat. There's heat coming off of this.
The heat is actually it's staying kind of it's lingering a bit. It's kind of the heat more so in the back of the throat. It's kind of an open spice. Yeah.
And as I go back to my empty glass, which I often do, and as I nose the empty glass again, I'm actually getting more of the vanilla from the glass now that it's empty than I was originally getting. But this, and there is, as Owen Upton said, it's hitting the nostrils. Yeah, this one, yeah, you could definitely get the alcohol from this one. And Jonathan, it's more enjoyable as you drink. Yeah, I agree, John. This is a delicious sipping bourbon. It's quite nice.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll proceed. We're going to take a little bit of water again, and then we're going to move on to number 4.
Just one thing before we go on to 4, Mike. It says 45% ABV. Are you sure it's not 50.5%?
Told you I changed them up, Tony.
But there's nothing here that's 50.5%.
No, the 50.5 will be the next one, I think. So I just left it. We left it at 50. The rounding down was 50. I used I think the next one is at 50, is it?
Yeah, we're at number 4. So number 4 will be 50.5. Yeah. Number 4 will be 50.5. Yeah.
This one is at 45. The next one is
45,
50.
no?
Yeah. Yeah. So number 3 is 45. Number 4 will be 50.5.
Yeah.
I'm proudly displaying his empty bottle.
Yeah.
Tom, no, it's not JD.
Tom, no.
Number 2 is definitely not JD.
It's actually
No. I meant John Doyle. JD John Doyle.
sorry. So I'm going.
As in, it's much easier to drink after the first 2 samples. That the third one is it's getting easier and easier.
So I'm going to say, right, it's quite interesting at the moment, right? In terms of JD, Jack Daniels, right? There's a lot of Jack Daniels available in Ireland at the moment. It is quite good, and there's a lot of different varieties in there. For some bizarre reason, other types of bourbon are not as easy to get. But I mean, there are a hell of a lot of types of bourbons at the moment, and I'm just assuming it's probably because bars have been closed, COVID-19 and all that kind of stuff. But we surely will see more coming in, Okay, so we're going to go on to number 4. Number 4. Who wants to start it off?
Cherries, and a little maraschino cherries. It's funny, right? Because when we noticed this the other day, right? And again, I'm going to go back to it. A certain Limerick author who just kept saying cherries every time he was tasting whiskey. Yeah, definitely cherries coming through to this, 100%.
Zero.
Yeah.
Cherry.
Banana, yeah, banana and dark chocolate, I think, is a great shout there.
Yeah.
It's tough. I have corn on the brain just because it's
Corn.
corn. But again, this kind of a rich, obviously not fresh corn, but a syrupy, thicker, sweeter corn.
Reminds me of when I was a kid, my mom used to always eat chocolate covered cherries.
Yeah. Actually, John has it at the chat there, kind of a dark chocolate, so kind of the chocolate and cherry.
And a lot of taxa. Yeah. Well, I think, Joe, let's try one and let's taste this one, right? Let's go and taste this one, because this one is
one of the things that I'm nosing on top of that is like bringing a pecan tart to your mouth, and you get the big burnt brown sugar and the caramelized brown sugar and the sweetened
That's nice.
broken down pecans.
Mm.
So I'm going to, yeah, you're right, Eric. I'm listening to you and I'm going, this is, yeah. I'll let you proceed.
No, I'm thinking it's reminding me of a nice heavy red wine. Again, the cherry aspect of it. Yeah, I just swallowing that, I was like, God, you know, just a nice warm room with a fire, like.
Yeah. So,
Oof.
Tony, I do have a question, and this is my naivete about American whiskey. For the oak barrels, are they charred or toasted, or are they totally raw, like native oak?
Both. First of all, if they didn't char it, they'd be porous. You'd get you'd lose it all. It would seep through.
Yeah.
So, like, I could go into the detail of the process that this particular distillery uses to char their barrels. But generally they're all charred. 90% of them are charred, and they have it's not an official gradient, but they do kind of have grade 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5 they call an alligator char, where they charred for an intense period at very high temperature, and they cook through the wood. That leads to very quick aging. They might use alligator char barrels for pumping out their blended whiskies. This distillery would use a char number 4, so it's quite a deep char. And char number 1 is just barely starting to break down the membrane. There's toasted barrels then are used a lot for finishing. Just because they wouldn't have broken down the membranes as much. So you can age for, say, 7 or 8 years in a standard charred barrel, and you know exactly what you're getting, and then put it for, say, another 4 years in a toasted barrel, and it's going to really mellow it out. But toasted barrels aren't used as much because they're not as uniform. Because you're not breaking down the skins, you're not leaching out the vanillins and the sugars from the oak. You're kind of leaving a lot more to nature, so they're not used as often. Because all these barrels, once they're used, are broken down and shipped to Scotland, Ireland, Japan, or wherever. Or else they're left with, I've seen deliveries in Irish distilleries where they're left with 2 liters of whiskey in them for transport, to stop them from drying out. Now, when they arrive, they've pretty much nothing in it, and the Irish distillery will put it over a big trough to drain out the rest and try and shake out some of the char, and absolutely nothing comes out. And the guys working on the distillery that day are really annoyed because they'll get any free drink. But yeah, no, they're generally charred. Standard 200-liter barrel, 53 gallons.
I think you used the word that I think of with this one. It's mellow. It's kind of making me think of a port wine. Just again, the dark chocolate, the cherry, mellow. Like this to me would be a great dessert.
I would say it's quite thick and rounded. There is a lot going on there from the cherries that I think I've now got my palate past, to the pecans, and a dark chocolate, like you'd expect oak aging to dry it out and give it that kind of high cocoa chocolate flavoring, and I think I'm getting that. Like, I can still experience it. It's treacle now at the end. It's just come down to its base bones.
In this one, right, I'm finding in terms of mouthfeel, right, and you can feel the dryness in this on your gums. It's like the tannins from the oak. It's like the spice from the oak, the pepper, like the black pepper. It's really, really nice. There's an element of butterscotch to it. There's an element of maple syrup to it. I've used maple syrup already, but it's there. It's that kind of sweetness. I can definitely get like kind of if you ever bit a roasted coffee bean, I can get that to it as well. And then I'm going to say I almost get a kind of a tobacco-ish kind of flavor to it. And it's kind of unusual, right? And I know there's a couple of comments coming in, right? And someone was saying it's kind of Liam was saying it's the lightest on smell. I would agree, right? It didn't have it didn't have the same complexity that the others had, but I think it had developed a very good body and a very good nose. So while it had, I suppose, a good presence. So while you were getting a very good aroma from it, there wasn't the mix and the mash of everything going on. It was very single-minded in what it does. Someone's saying it's like a caramelized apple. I get it. Lovely bit of spice to it. The empty glass smells like sawdust. John Nolan said.
Did you drop it, John, or is it you still smelling it?
Yeah, I can't.
Sawdust.
I'm going to say, John, it's a really interesting one, right? I
Like you're getting kind of an oaky, all right, but
yeah, I could. Do you know what? I could see where you're coming from, right? I can actually see like kind of wood chips.
I think he's bang on, because like the sawdust has all the sugars left remaining in the air, and that's really there. It's one part of it. It's I'm getting salesman-y here, but like it's
we're gonna put. I warned you about putting you in the meeting room if you continue this behavior, right?
It's rounded, you know. My brother-in-law's here with me, and he was kind of saying there's some things that you sometimes drink a whiskey and like that smells, but then you drink it, it's like, oh, it's lovely. Unfortunately, there's still that little part that's letting it down. Whereas this, like as I said, I smelled cherries. I had a sip. There was loads of the pecans, the nuts, caramel, but then I saw the caramelized apple. I'm like, yeah. There's the sweet, clingy caramel with the bite of the apple coming through, but then the finish just keeps going and going, and I can get the port off it. Definitely can get the port, and that bit of the tartness from the port maybe being surlees and the yeast going back into it, and there's a huge amount of wood influence.
So I'm going to say the finish on this, the finish on this one is the finish on this one is quite interesting, right? Because for me, it's not the warming finish that you'd expect. It's the mouthfeel, the mouth presence finish. It is dry. It is oak. It is tart. It is
definitely
red winey. It is definitely red winey, right? It reminds me of a very good, like a Bordeaux, right? That's kind of what I would write.
Nice heavy wine.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, it's good.
But,
good
yeah, I think the comment about the sawdust, and my father was a carpenter and he had his circulating saw down in the basement. It's not the sawdust, it's the smell of when the blade is going through the wood and that smell coming out. It's
the heat.
Yeah, it's the heat. There's in an empty glass. I'm saying that's somebody, whoever wrote that. Lane, like, yeah.
Definitely. Okay, let's proceed. Right, let's take a little bit of water in, and we're going to move on to number 5. So we're flying along here. So yeah, exactly. The smell of fresh cut wood in a workshop. There you go. As Eric just said. Yeah, I get it. Getting it now, bang on, come on. So let's proceed, right? And you're definitely going to need some water right after that one, right, to try and cleanse the palate a little bit to move on. And then
I think something that was interesting when I held that in my mouth. Actually, a few things. When I was nosing it and holding my mouth open as I nosed it, there was definitely an influence in the back of my tongue. Just the aromas wafting down over my palate, and then in my mouth, every time you kind of run it around your mouth and you activate your saliva gland underneath your tongue, there's a little bit of dilution, and there's a little bit of a burst of body, and then a little different flavor, because it had just diluted down a little bit. So it was just getting, the higher ABV allows that, you know, especially when you're up above the 50% mark. So there's a lot of room to dilute it down, and yeah, it's very enjoyable. And look, we've got 49% here next, so
So Sean had a comment in there saying it reminds me of Power's Three Swallows. I can 100% get where you're going. Yeah, it does. It reminds me of a very good pot still. It's there. Watch him shake his head. Don't shake your head, Tony. Look, it does. That's right. Don't say it doesn't. It does. Okay, number 5, right? John Noel is saying nail polish is jumping out. I think John Doyle is saying nutmeg is jumping out. I think the one that jumped out for me was kind of ginger nut biscuit.
Yeah, this doesn't have the same sort of sweetness, the caramel, the butterscotch, the toffee, nothing like that. Like it's
We'll all have to come up with new
so
answers.
much lighter.
Had a lot fresh peas. Pat, you know what, right?
You're barred, Pat. You're barred.
No, I try not to use colours when I'm describing taste. All I could think of was green when I was nosing this.
Grass.
Yeah, but it was more. I think it was more than that. I couldn't put my finger on it because I was just going to. It's green. I can't explain it. I can't explain it. Just green came to mind for me, you know. But yeah, fresh peas definitely. Tom, come on. So what are you getting?
Sorry, Pat. You're actually right. It's kind of we've got a living gardener here, and if I can smell like grass, I'm allergic to it at this stage. It kind of is. Now that he said it, that's all I can get. Kind of peas and cut grass.
What is it? Mushy peas there? Like it's no, definitely is. Look, I think that for me, there was initially a kick of ginger to it. I could just see. I hate you.
Peppermint. If you're going to your herb garden, it's peppermint or chervil or chives, kind of those kind of little minerally kind of herbs.
Yeah.
Not overly savoury. No rosemary, no thyme in here. It's chervil, chives, little sweet mint.
I'm getting a kind of a caramel though as well. It's kind of a bit of caramel on it. Yeah.
Okay, let's proceed on. Let's give this a taste, right? Because you know we're mushy peas, we're chervil, we're chives.
We've nearly a full dinner.
Like I would say, comparing to 4, it's very different, but very enjoyable, and it's different. Different extreme. It's nail polish.
I feel like I'm going to be the first to say this out loud. I'm wondering if there's this one to me. Is there rye? I'm thinking of rye bread, kind of that bitey, not sweet.
You definitely taste more herbal.
Quite sweet to me now. Anyway, maybe it's just my palate, but
Yeah.
quite sweet. Owen mentioned like ginger ale type. It's a little bit like that actually.
You're getting the caramel come through on it. It's actually kind of a bit fruity, but a kind of more citrusy kind of fruit.
I'm getting a bit of black pepper coming through it. This kind of for me is of the 5 thus far. It's kind of the most unusual of the 5 thus far.
I would agree. Yeah.
The finish is short, but the warming finish is a little bit longer, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
the mouthfeel ends quite quickly, but the warming sensation is there that little bit longer.
I think the first 4 could be somewhat related as family. This would be like a distant cousin. This one's just different.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's hard to pinpoint.
You can feel it in the bollock a bit more with this one, but not as much in the back of the throat. It kind of comes and goes very quick on the throat, but it lingers down a bit further.
No, John, you would have got the same. They're all filled in batches, so.
I think I'm most curious to see the answer to this one.
I love as soon as you swallow and you inhale, there's a huge whack of treacle, big, thick, creamy, sweet, burnt sugar treacle. Mike mentioned E105A, and I've made that working at restaurants before. You put brown sugar in a pot and you burn the bejesus out of it until it turns into a syrup on the bottom. Just brown sugar, it will melt. As long as you don't, you cook it, you don't burn it. As long as you don't actually burn it, it will just reduce down, and you add that to anything, and treacle is the first thing Rory wrote down. Yeah, and it's still there. It's still there.
Huh.
You might say it's one-dimensional, but it's really, really enjoyable one-dimensional. And then there's a bit of tobacco coming through, I think, now as well.
Sweet tongue, there's definitely a bit of pepper. It's kind of like a black pepper.
So someone had to comment oily. Yes, that definitely that leads into the treacle. That kind of does work.
I see Sean there in the comments saying tongue is on fire. Yep, needs water for me.
Yeah.
Definitely add water,
empty
but
glass-
you use a teaspoon, use half a teaspoon. Less is more. You can't take the water back out if you over dilute it. So a teaspoon is 5 mils. Use half a teaspoon, 2.5 mils. In your 50 ml sample, 2.5 mils, you're dropping it down a percentage less, and that's perfect because then you can keep adding with each sip. You can control the flavor as you go.
I'd be very,
Smoked paprika is one of the things on my palate.
I'd be very interested if John Knoll is listening, right? If you have an empty glass, John, if you were to nose it now, because you had some good calls earlier on the nosing, but with an empty glass, what are you getting? I think you had the sawdust. That would be because there's
definitely a woody. There's definitely kind of a woody, even on the.
Yeah, there's definitely a woodiness to this one now on the nose on the empty glass. Okay, Richard, we're definitely going to need some water after this one, right? Because it is a little bit more fiery. It has been a little bit spicier on the tongue. I can still even get it there. John, it has a wooden boat smell to me. Okay, I like it. Yeah, I can definitely get that woodiness from the chap. I'm taking, and then we'll go on into number 6, the last and final American.
I think I have a hint of either Kinder Bueno or salted caramel ice cream. One of those kind of
Cool.
flavors.
I thought I was the only one dropping brand names, but there you go. That's okay. Come on, Tony.
Just put a hashtag in front of it.
It's all right, guys.
Yeah.
You drop as much as you want. We get paid the royalties first.
Hashtag sellout.
Okay, moving on to the very last one. So last one of the number 6. So let's nose it again with 15 mils. I'm going to say immediately this one is a lot more subtle on the nose immediately, but there's a little bit more complexity going on with it. Anyone want to start this? So there's a very prominent fruit here for me.
I'm just going to say very fruity. Look, I'll go. It's you're definitely. I think you're getting a banana.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah. Bang on, yeah.
It's kind of.
It's like banoffee pie.
Yeah. Rory, that's pear. Do you know what, Rory? I would definitely agree. Banana and pear are very similar in terms of the aroma that you get from them. Yeah.
I'd be really curious to know how much the barrel was or was not charred on this, or was charred on this one.
Are you getting the oak char from this, Eric?
Professionally speaking, of course, yes.
five whiskeys in, of course.
Yes.
9 o'clock on a Saturday on a bank holiday weekend. Sure.
If Amber asked me that question, yes.
Am I charred? I'm charred.
We number 6. Yeah. We're on to number 6. Yeah.
So we
I was seeing Bananas Foster, and I'm like, charred banana. Yes. What is,
So we often discuss tastings in terms of food, right? So we taste and we smell it and we relate it back to food. This, for some bizarre reason, has put kind of dessert at a restaurant in my head.
Yeah.
Coffee pie with coffee.
Tom had it there.
Coffee pie, but with a coffee on the side, kind of. That's kind of the aroma I'm getting from this. There's a lovely kind of a roast coffee from it. There's a lovely chocolate, lovely banana. I definitely get a bit of an oak char from it as well, but there's a nice spice to it. It's really good. Yeah,
a little bit of walnutty.
It's the most pungent of the 6, I'd say, in terms of really comes out. You don't have to just stick your whole head in the glass like to get a.
I think
smell,
this one in number 4. It's almost something I don't want to drink because I really enjoy the smell, and we've gotten that with a lot of wines. where look, they've come out tasting very well, but the aromas I've just really enjoyed. And this, and I think it was number 4. I really am just enjoying the aromas.
Agreed.
That's why you'll truly never be Irish, Eric.
Well, there's a good comment there. It's less aggressive, but it's very very sweet aroma. And John Doyle is saying it's like a single malt. I think 6 very similar to number 4, Eric, as you said. I don't want to say that there's less complexity because that wouldn't be fair to either of the whiskies. But I think they're more defined in the aromas that we're getting from them, and it's coming out a little bit stronger. But it's really good, really good.
I wonder, is that the complexity in the nose because the 4 and 6 are the highest ABVs? I wouldn't think so, but maybe.
I don't think so, right? And
I wouldn't think so, but it is a common trait. One thing that again, sorry, salesman's talk. When it's a higher ABV, there is a potential for more flavor because there's less dilution. So there's more there. It hasn't been mellowed out yet. You can mellow it out yourself. Please. You can make the bottle last longer. You can enjoy more flavors. You can experience more flavors. But there is the higher potential for flavor.
I would sometimes you describe it as simplicity in it, and that's not to diminish it, but it's very, I suppose it knows what it is. The aromas are coming out really well, really strong, whereas in some of the others we've had tonight, I felt that there's been a competition in terms of aromas, whereas here with here and in number 4 there were winners. And you can get the winners very clearly from it. Again, for me, it's that bananas coffee. Let's go and taste it, right? Let's because I'm kind of thinking banoffee pie, as Tom said. It could be quite dessertish. It could be quite nice.
So, for those of us who don't know, banoffee pie, is that something made at home or bought outside the home?
Yes.
Both.
You've had it before.
Have I?
Yeah.
Heck's sake.
Exactly.
Can you block Eric's part of the screen there, lad?
Jesus.
John Doyle is asking, have we many straight bourbon drinkers in Mother Max?
Well, at the moment, how many's on the call? Well,
yeah. Do you know what? That's a very good question, right? I'm going to say that we typically have 2 bottles of bourbon here that move nicely, and I think it's one of those things. And again, I use Marmite as an example a lot of times, right? If you love it, you love it, and if you don't love it, you hate it, right? But we've 2 bottles of bourbon, and people tend to really, who are into bourbon, really like them, and it does move quite well. I will also say that like Jack Daniel's is probably the biggest selling bourbon in the premises, but like
is that advertising though? Is that like the Guinness effect? The PR
people know
it's H1T like behind it, or is it just? Is it just literally the JD and Coke? JD and Coke, please, man.
JD and Coke, please. Yeah, look, so I mean, anything that you have to mix another product with flavor to it, you're not really tasting it as such, right? I don't want to
exactly. Yeah. Could be anything like.
I'm going to say something about Jack Daniel's, right? It's not a bad supping whiskey, right? It's you'd be very, very surprised. And I will say for anyone on the call, right? Have you ever actually tasted it neat? Because I can say, right, and I'm in this trade quite a lot, right? Quite a long time. I've never drank Jack Daniel's neat up until maybe a year ago, and I was very, very surprised, right? As in, it was somewhat palatable. Now a little sweet for me, but somewhat palatable. So I would say just the next time try it neat. It's quite fun, right? Okay.
So on the comments in the chat there, technically it's not a bourbon because it goes through the Louisville County or some county process, the Lynchburg County process. It's a Tennessee whiskey, same as Dickel is a Tennessee whiskey. It is filtered through 3 stories of maple charcoal, but it's made in exactly the same way as bourbon is made until the filtration. And the filtration was done, it was created by Nearest Green. The filtration process was created by a manumitted slave in the 1870s named Nearest Green. Now you can buy Uncle Nearest whiskey now, made by same people behind Jack Daniels. And it was because they couldn't control the distillation process 150 years ago as well as they could now. And they still left with some impurities that were nasty. So to guarantee their product was quality, they would have filtered it. So,
I just want to ask a question on that one, right? Just because, just for my own clarity, I as far as I understood, the Tennessee whiskey label isn't an actual, I suppose, isn't a classification within the technical file for.
No, it's not. You're correct. There is American single malt, which is 51% malt. You can put in 49%, whatever else you want. There is American grain whiskey, which is column distilled, and then there is American bourbon and rye, which is 51% rye. Tennessee whiskey isn't controlled. However, if you filter the whiskey, you can't call it bourbon.
Yeah.
So therefore, Jack Daniels and Dickel, and I think I can't think of another one. They're the two big ones. They can't call it bourbon. It is made to the same bourbon specifications and then filtered. It tends to lead to a slightly mellower, lighter whiskey, which should be more appealing to everybody out there. And I'm trying not to say anything disparaging. It is a fantastic blended whiskey, and please, I like. I used to always have a bottle of Gentleman Jack in my drinks cabinet, but it's a very big drinks cabinet.
I know my hand up, and I'm going to say, right, I for the first time ever, right, and I mean, I've worked in and out of this trade for over 20 years, right, and for the first time last year, as part of training that we did, I tasted Jack Daniels neat. Never did it before, right? So that'll just tell you we're preconceived to mix something with it, right? And I was quite impressed with it because I didn't expect it to be as it was, right? Some really nice comments coming in, but I just want to finish up on number 6, right? So I mean, in terms of the palate, for me, there's a little bit of cinnamon, there's a little bit of caramel to it, there's definitely black pepper. I'm also getting a bit of licorice in it, right? It's really nice, right? It's really kind of Moorish, and there's a spice there.
I was going to say on the finish there's a spice. It's kind of a spice, kind of rye. I don't know would it be kind of a spice, kind of rye on the finish.
And then as we go back to the glass, back to the empty glass, right? There is a gorgeous kick of vanilla off it. There really is, and it's really nice.
I think the rye is really present in the finish.
Yeah.
That rye bread note. That people say cracked black pepper. I could never get the cracked black pepper. More paprika, more smoked paprika.
It's kind of the spice, and I suppose when you think spice, chicken pepper, chicken black pepper kind of thing. Yeah. You know, paprika. Yeah.
I think James and you might be going back to the tasting we had with the blender in Berlin, and he was trying to explain the differences to us.
I said I'd actually love to sit down with him now, because I say we've done training the last year or so. We'd love to sit down with him now and do it. You know, it's actually, you know, it'd be great.
So just I'm going to put it in context for the group, right? Because you're obviously having a private conversation here.
Sorry.
Yeah. Can you get you talked about another room? Can you just put them in another room?
In a room, right? So we do apologize, right?
Yeah.
So for anyone who wants to know what went on, right? Go back and listen to the Treaty City podcast from Meet the Brewer, right? You'll hear all the lowdown about it. The only thing I'm going to say is Steve Kineen framed it as if James was doing all these things. In truth, the pictures are there. Steve was the one riding horses outside a square of a nightclub at 4 a.m.
Was there a horse outside, lads? No.
There was a big plastic horse, right?
Plastic silver
Sorry,
horse.
I had to throw it in there. Sorry.
Lads, please excuse me for a comfort break. I'll be back presently.
So just for the benefit, right? James, Steve Kineen from Treaty City, and Tony went to Berlin for the World Barback Games. James represented Ireland, and basically it was sponsored by Fernand Branco. The lads had a great time. If you want to know more about it, we're not going to discuss it here, right? It's on the
Thank God you didn't. Thank God you said bareback and not bareback. Anyway,
No,
go on.
no, or broke back.
No, definitely not.
Okay, we have reached the point now where it's just getting madness, and
You can mute the Killarney contingent.
yeah, I think I think we're going to.
Danism.
I was telling that
Are
girl
we
behind,
not, are we not on to whiskey number 7 no?
that girl behind you to throw you out.
Tom's doing laps.
She's gone now. She's gone.
Okay, so we're at that time of the evening where we're gonna kind of let everyone know what's what.
We've been revealed.
We'll do the reveal. Now to do this reveal, actually, I'm just gonna give me 2 seconds. Oh no, no, I don't want to do that.
Will we be surprised by anything, or will we be pleasantly
I think there's a
something?
I think. Well, look. I'm going to be very honest, right? And I'm going to say that this has been
The worst podcast ever.
one of the more difficult of the tastings that we've had, and I know we've only had 4, right? But it's. I'm going to share my screen here. This makes the easiest sense. It's been the most difficult of it because it's been very hard to guess bourbon.
Mm.
Okay.
Damn.
Well, we can ask what people like in a minute, chat.
Yeah, we'll go, right? Okay, so here we go, right? So, is it gold chest? Yeah, John, no, it does, right? I really, yeah, I can. That one is a lovely. So, we're going to go with left to right, right? Sample 1 was Buffalo Trace. Buffalo Trace. Look, it's 40% ABV. New oak charred barrels, 51% corn. Minimum, as Tony had said, right? Interestingly, right, because it carries the, and you'll see it on the bottom of it. It's a straight bourbon, so we know that it's there, right, for 4 years minimum. You know, and so it's been aged for 4 years, even though there isn't an age statement on it, right? Buffalo Trace.
So at least 4 years, anyhow.
Minimum 4 years, right? And Buffalo Trace is quite delicious. It really is it's a go-to for a lot of us, right? Sample number 2.
Can I do the salient points? It's 8 years old, Buffalo Trace.
Okay.
Is it 8 years old? Is it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Tony is the brand rep. Go on, Tony, go first. Tell us all about Buffalo.
It's the eponymous bottling of the world's oldest continuously operated distillery. Distilling on site in 1792, but there has been some records in 1776 of distilleries, and renamed
in America, presumably, yeah.
In America, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There is a well-known Irish distillery which was built in 1784, which claims to be operating since 1608, which is difficult to do when it didn't exist for another 150 years.
Okay.
Move on.
But yeah, so it's 8 years old. In America, it's bottled at 45%. Here, it's 40%, so we can set it at a price that people can approach it. It's what's Buffalo Trace Mash Bill 1, which, like I said, we don't know exactly what it is, but we can say it's 63 to 65% maize. It's a low rye, so it's 4 to 5% rye, and it's the eponymous bottling. It's been bottled since 1999 as the flagship bottling for Sazerac, and one of the most awarded whiskies there is. And then number 2 is Weller Special Reserve, which is the entry-level bottling of Buffalo Trace Mash Bill 2, which is the wheated mash bill. So there's no rye in this. It's a high wheat mash bill. So officially, Buffalo Trace have 4 mash bills, and
the same crowd that do Buffalo Trace. It is
same distillery.
Okay, same distillery. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. And in Frankfort, Kentucky, it's gone through many different names. Up till 1999, it was from 1897 to 1999. It was the George T. Stagg distillery. Weller is about 7 years old. and it would be again 63, 66, 67% maize and about 24-25% wheat. Sorry, it's Buffalo Trace Mash Bill 4. Mash Bill 4 is the wheated one. Buffalo Trace Mash Bill 2 is the high rye mash bill, which is very rarely produced. Normally goes into a bourbon called Blanton's, which is 24-25% rye. So this is 24-25% wheat. So, like, there were comments saying how it was so different, different palate and all that, and that was exactly why, because there was no rye in it, there was less maize, it was replaced by wheat.
And I know that John Nolan, this one, had a comment that he thought it was kind of the most rye.
Yeah, there's none.
And to be fair, I think realistically, you know, it was probably the wheat that he was getting, you know, and it's because there's pretty much rye in most bourbons, but this one is very much.
Yeah, like there's a big history behind the Weller brand, and they're one of the few people to produce wheat, because wheat is a mellower grain to use, so other flavors then pull through. So unless you're very precise with your distilling, you couldn't guarantee. So you'd use rye to make sure you had a whack of flavor.
Yeah.
With modern distillation techniques, that's redundant.
And I don't. You didn't get it wrong, John. I think you picked up on it very good, even though you had said rye, but it was wheat. But you were very good. You were very good at picking up how different it was, which is great, right? So sample 3 then, Eagle Rare 20, 10-year-old Kentucky bourbon, absolutely beautiful, 45%, not less than 10 years.
It's 10 years old. It's 10-year-old Buffalo Trace. It's Buffalo Trace Mash Bill 1. 10 years old, slightly higher ABV.
And then probably the find of the evening is the Eagle Rare 17. You know, and in this one, right, I can tell you that bottle, it says 17, right? It's 18 years and 3 months old at the date of bottling. It's absolutely fantastic. It's new white oak with char number 3 or char number 4 used, right? And the reason I can say it is that we get a certificate with it. And if anyone can't see that chat, but you get a beautiful certificate with it, right? It's very rare that we would have a bottle of this quality in the bar here. And I suppose the reason being is it's really only sold by allocation. Tony can explain that, but it's unusual to be able to get your hands on it. The upside of COVID-19 has been that we have been able to grab a couple of bottles of these and sneak them into this tasting. But it's an exceptionally rare one to get.
So
and are they available? Obviously, they're produced in the States, like, but they're being snuck over, and where like, is it hiding in Ireland or no? Like, when the lads say kind of it's a coup to get it in, like it's a kind of a, you know, Marcus Babbel to Liverpool kind of free transfer kind of thing. Like, what's
that's pretty accurate, I think.
There's only so much of it that makes it into Ireland, and what I find then is that, if I'm being quite honest, the bigger accounts, like i.e. Adair Manor, etc., are gobbling it up, right? Which means
that are making their own Middleton, like.
Well, no, look, we're not going to go into that, right? But look, it's no shock.
Don't worry, they love me anyway, so it's fine.
Look, we love them, right? We like it out there. But I suppose what I'm trying to say is that, you know, for the type of we are, right, it's unusual for us to have access to it, because we wouldn't have a high throughput of it or a high sales for it.
And
so it's coming into the country, but it's limited.
It's very
like, yeah.
Well, it's limited anyway. So to give context, Eagle Rare 17 is part of the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection, which is an annual offering of flagship bottlings. So there's Eagle Rare 17, Sazerac 18, George T. Stagg, William LaRue Weller, and Thomas H. Handy, and they're flagship bottlings of the core mash bills from Buffalo Trace. They're very rare. Like Eagle Rare 17, you're talking 2,000 or 3,000 bottles a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
No, that's good.
Maybe a dozen to 20 barrels, you know, selected from a certain floor of a certain warehouse, bottled at a certain season, and there's not much liquid left in the barrel after 18 years. And Eagle Rare 17 and George C. Stagg, they're the two antique collection bottlings of that mash bill. This was the second bottling of Eagle Rare 17 at that ABV. Previously, they had been 45%.
So I'm going to say, Tony, just because you brought it up, right? This came from Warehouse P. It was on the first floor, and 59% of the original whiskey was lost on evaporation. Right, that's 59% of it was gone.
It's gone.
Oh, right. So
and to say that it's on the first floor, to us, that's the ground floor, and that's the coldest floor. So that's the slowest that there will be for evaporation and flavor development. And that's the only way they could keep it going for that long. There are
Who left
3
immersion
bottlings
on
of Eagle
that?
Rare.
So someone had a comment when we were tasting sample 4, right, in terms of the Eagle Rare, in terms of it was like a pot still, right? And probably I think the comment was probably most related to the fact that it had the highest concentration of flavoring, it had the highest concentration of oils, of congeners, and that's because, right, again, 59% of this is lost. You know, and I want to call it, it's the angel's share is what it's called, but I mean, Jesus Christ, how can you call that the angel's share, right? You know, almost 60% of it is gone up into the warehouse. Imagine that warehouse, how well it smells, how good it smells. Okay, sample number 5, right, 1792, single barrel. Interesting on that, right? 1792 was the year Kentucky was recognized.
Yeah, they sheared it off from Virginia.
Yeah, and named a beautiful single barrel whiskey after it.
I'm thinking Virginia was a dry state at that stage.
Maybe.
And again, right, this one is it's kind of a higher rye mash bill. I think it's 15 to 25% in there. It's really good. For some reason, I there's a story in the back of my head, and I can't remember which one it was about, but were one of these whiskies, Tony, sold as medicinal whiskies during Prohibition?
The previous ones from Buffalo Trace was, so this is the 1792 is the Bardstown 1792 distillery from the Barton 1792 distillery from Bardstown, Kentucky. The other ones were from the Buffalo Trace distillery, and Buffalo Trace produced medicinal whiskey throughout Prohibition, one of only a handful of distilleries that produced medicinal whiskey throughout Prohibition. This is barrels selected early in their maturation by the master blender in Barton 1792 to be flagship bottlings for the distillery. Bottled at 49.3%, around 7 or 8 years old, a high rye mash bill. So when Eric started saying this is different, took some notes. Yeah, we all of a sudden we got more herbs in this one because it's a different distillery. It's solely pot still distillation here. In Buffalo Trace, they have a unique beer still. It's 3 stories high. I think you could fit 8 minis stacked on top of it in their column still there, so called a beer still. So different distillery, slightly different climate.
So we're going to drive back into number 6, Tony, right? 1792, the bottled in bond. Bottled in bond is an actual classification in terms of American whiskey and bourbon, and basically the criteria on it are that it is aged for a minimum of 4 years. It comes from a single season, comes from a single distillery, and it is bottled at 100% proof or 50% ABV, right?
100 proof, 50% ABV. So Colonel E.H. Taylor was the owner of the then Old Fire and Copper distillery that's now Buffalo Trace in the 1890s. He was the nephew of the American president Zachary Taylor and an influential lobbyist, and he lobbied for defined whiskey regulations in Congress, and it was the 1897 Bottle and Bond Act was the very first law to define whiskey. So the key part was that it must be aged in a federally supervised bonded warehouse, so that you knew that the government were controlling the quality. No more than 4 years old, no less than 4 years old, 100 proof, 1 distillery season, blah blah blah. The season part is because spirit was normally distilled from your leftover harvests from your harvest season, so there'd be 2 harvest seasons a year. This particular one is, again, like everything from Barton 1792, in and around 7 or 8 years old, and I really enjoyed it. I think it was probably more enjoyable than what should be the flagship single barrel bottling, but each their own.
So, some nice comments coming in, right? John Noel is saying that number 3 reminds him of a refined version of bootleg corn liquor that he tried when he was in university in Colorado. Eagle Rare has to be the go-to bourbon for any enthusiast after this tasting. Yeah, look, we were asked what would we normally have here. There's 2 that we normally would have, and that would be, actually, sorry, 3, even I was wrong. Actually, we'd always have Buffalo Trace here. We'd always have an Eagle Rare, and then we have the 1792 as well, right? In terms of the single barrel or small batch, depending on what we can get, right? And that's what we always have, you know. And look, I mean, all the others, right, are fantastic, right? That Weller was quite difficult to get. The Eagle Rare 17 we were very lucky to get it. We're very thankful to Tony for being able to get it for us. The 1792 bottled in bond is a really interesting one, right? That was one that we were kind of very interested to see what it was like. And there's good comments coming back in the chat on that.
Have you got that? Will you have that behind the bar, or what's the story?
So I'm genuinely going to say this, right? Our bar counter is only so big, right? So if you don't see something, ask, because you'll be very surprised what we have downstairs.
It could be in the dungeon, and it might be just get on the stairs and bring it up, you know.
Don't worry, I'm that kind of asshole anyway. I'll ask.
You have to live in Limerick to drink it. You can't live in Killarney.
We have the private collection as well as the collection. You know?
Excuse me now. I've 35 years on you in Limerick, so.
So I will say this has all been interesting because, I mean, obviously I know Buffalo Trace, but the bourbons that we've drank are, I mean, some artisan, but more commercial bourbons in the US. And I don't recognize any of these names because, I mean, even in the US, I don't think they're not sort of commercial bourbons. They're sort of, I've never seen any of these on the shelf. So it's kind of interesting to try versus what we're used to.
Can I ask then, Amber, what would be kind of the typical go-to bourbons in the US from your perspective?
Well, from what we would drink like a Maker's Mark or a Bulleit, Woodford Reserve. Those are really our 3 kind of go-tos when we are drinking bourbon.
And all quite good, yeah.
What was that?
All quite good as well, yeah. They're all quite good bourbons as well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're higher end than, you know, like a Jack Daniels or something along those lines. They're easy drinking. They're probably a little bit more sweet than a lot of what we tried today. Like, I think there's that sweetness to what I think of an American bourbon that we didn't get on a flavor profile from a lot of these. So I think that's, again, why it's been a little bit unique.
Yeah. And it's also been interesting. I'm afraid to say this and get run out of the country. There have been a few whiskey producers here in Ireland that have been using sherry casks that, in my mind, I'm like, Jesus, this is kind of like a cousin of a bourbon. The sweetness from the sherry casks that they're using, I was like, oh, I kind of like this because I kind of do like bourbon a little bit. Although, you know, my father was a Jack Daniels drinker, never liked Jack Daniels myself. And lo and behold, you know, these are.
I'm kind of laughing because as you were saying it, I was just going, oh no, he's not going there. Yeah, he's not going there. But yeah, he did, right? He went there. Okay, look, unless, right, there's burning questions or unless there's comments that people want to throw in, right? There's some lovely comments coming through, right? I'm going to end this. I'm going to bring it to an end. But what I want to say is, I want to say a huge thank you to Tony, because without Tony and without High Spirits, we wouldn't be able to facilitate this today. You know, so a big thank you to Tony,
Thanks, Tony.
to Tom.
Good. The Ryans are a good Limerick name anyway, so good to have him aboard, even if he's not from Limerick. But
Nina Ryan, sorry. Plungers from Carrigal, Nina. But
close enough anyway, close enough.
I'm the Cork branch of the family.
We call him the Ryan Dove. All right. Okay.
Can I thank Mike and James for giving me this opportunity to help them with great difficulty. We got it together, and thanks to Coleman Celtic Whisky Shop for helping us as well, getting these whiskies out. Like what the guys do in Mother Mac's, it's pretty much unparalleled from what I can see around the country. They've created a community around this little pub on this side street in Limerick, which is just, it just blows my mind that they've been able to do this and to produce these tasting experiences for people. And come Tuesday, I won't be there, but I'll be there Thursday week. And
You might be your Tuesday later, Tony.
But please go in and let them turn you upside down and shake you for everything that falls out as soon as you can get in the door.
We're moving on, right? Okay, Tom, a big thank you to you, Tom, for joining us. You know, you're obviously you're a Limerick man. You're a good guy to that. All the best people are from Limerick, to be quite honest with you, except you know, I mean, our friends in the States. You know, but look, let's be quite honest. We're delighted that you come into us and you do visit us when we were open. We look forward to having you back. We look forward to business reopening for you, because it has been a tough 15, 16 months of it, and it probably for you, at least we see a little bit of light in the tunnel. You know, for you, it'll probably be another couple of months before things kind of start to open up a little bit. So anyone that wants to play a bit of golf, you know, look up Tom, right? I'm sure he'll do golf tours for the Irish just as much as anyone else, and check him out, right? And then finally to Eric and Amber and Eric, right? You know, who are, look, they're great friends of ours, right? Let's be quite honest, they really are, and they've been huge advocates for what we do here and for everything that is Mother Mac's, and they've been you know, just general good friends and good people. And they've moved to Limerick in amidst a pandemic, which was a total madness.
Not advisable.
Yeah,
one year ago today or yesterday?
1 year ago today.
There you go.
Today, right? So here we go, right? So it's funny, in a lot of what we've been doing recently, we've been hearing stories from individuals who have started a new leg of their business or a new adventure in the midst of a pandemic, and they've just had to reinvent themselves and do something completely different. Yeah. You know, and I mean, I think you've done a great job in doing what you do. You know, and long may it continue. And hopefully, if there's someone from Fáilte Ireland or Limerick.ie or Limerick County Council here listening to this, right, give them a job, please, right? Let them do what they do, because they're
well. And then the one thing you can do for us is the next tasting can be gin.
Oh yeah.
Oh. On that, right, I'm going to say massive thank you. We will be continuing this maybe in a different format. It could be a blended format, i.e. tastings in Peggy's Parlour as well as online. I will say normally we'd be very quick at the end of this to roll on with the next one. Please bear with us. We just want to take a bit of time to kind of get the place open, get it running back again. And it'll probably be towards the end of July, maybe the August bank holiday weekend, before we do the next one. And as I said, it will be something blended, whereby we will sell a number of seating or seats in here where you can come in and do the tasting live with us in here, but we'll also do it online in this format as well. And it'll be interesting, it'll be a bit of fun, and look, it'll be the best way that we can all gather for the time being.
All right.
Good stuff. That's thanks very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a million, guys. Have a good weekend, folks. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, guys. See you soon.
Go on, Eric.
Round of applause.